town of the good, the bad, and the weird. You either live by the gun, or you die by the sword.
Welcome to the Good, the Bad, and the Weird podcast. I'm Nicho.
And I'm Chris.
And we are back in 2024 with our usual animated film to start the year off.
Of course.
And this year we actually decided not only to tackle one film, but a trilogy that hits the nostalgia pretty heavy, and that is Toy Story.
Of course. This is not just a nostalgic ride, but also like a cornerstone piece for those of us who enjoy a computer animated, like, styling, Pixar especially.
And just for film in general.
Oh my god, yeah.
Yeah. So for those unfamiliar with Toy Story, it's about toys that come to life in their inner political turmoil as the old regime is threatened by a new toy.
At least for the first one. It changes as we go forward. But I think part of that is because they, like all great movies we have learned, a bunch of nerds made this film. And so as we have learned with all great nerds is they spent a lot of time thinking about this film, and we're going to go into all of that. But they thought so hard and long thinking about this film, they didn't think about the future films that were going to be made about this.
Yeah.
But don't worry, Disney had their back.
To a point.
Yeah.
So the writing credit's a bit rough, with the original story by John Lasseter, Peter Docter, Andrew Staten, and Joe Ranft, with screenplay by Joss Whedon, Andrew Stanton, Joel Cohen, not of the Coen brothers,
no,
and Alec Sokolow.
Yes.
Directed by Lasseter, it stars Tom Hanks, Tim Allen, all as they were becoming big names. So that was one thing they were very happy about getting before they could charge more.
Tom Hanks was definitely like a well-known actor at this point. Tim Allen, this was just before the Handyman TV show. So like he was known, but he was not a like 90s household name just yet.
No, not yet. So our sources for this episode include commentary by Lasseter, Stanton, supervising animator Peter Docter, art director Ralph Eggleston, supervising technical director Bill Reeves, and producer Ralph Guggenheim, with also the book Toy Story, The Art and Making of the Animated Film, with text by John Lasseter and Steve Daly.
And also a making of short that was on the DVD.
Yes. The classic making of.
Yes.
Yeah. And so I do want to bring up front, we aren't going to be going into the full story of Pixar because that's just a bit much to go over for right now.
Yes. We will eventually probably cover all of their stuff, but we're just really focusing in on Toy Story here.
Yeah. So, but in the interviews, it was stated that the goal was always to make an animated feature for Pixar from the get-go.
Yes.
And each year they kept trying to push the medium and see what they could have been done. And this is important because CGI films were not a thing before them. They were just like cute little shorts that were like, oh, that was experimental.
Yeah, so before this is really Pixar's first full feature-length movie. Pixar had kind of a rough start, but like this was supposed to be like their big kicking off point, right? And to kind of test the waters and to see if they were going to be able to get away with a very plasticky looking movie, which back then that's what CGI stuff looked like, was plasticky. They sent out a short called Tin Toy. It was released around Christmas time in '88, and they had a very good response. Back then, though, most of what Pixar made was shorts. So like, and I mean, they still do. That's part of their culture. That's part of who Pixar is making shorts. And so they had a really good review and like positive feedback from the Tin Toy short release. And so they thought, okay, well, if that looked good, what if we just did the whole movie about toys who are already plastic?
Yes,
we could just keep going, which honestly works really great. But it is now, all these years later, it is shocking to go back and watch Toy Story because we have been blessed with Toy Story after Toy Story paced really well to kind of keep up with the CGI advancements and the art styling that has now come along with CGI. There was no art styling back in the day. There was just CGI, and you hoped for the best.
Yeah.
And so the toy part of Toy Story looks really great. The rose-tinted glasses that get yanked off your face the moment you have to look at a human in this, ouch.
Yeah, there are some patches of it's rough, especially with some of the shading and like a little bit of the darker shots where the animation doesn't Like,
Yeah.
It doesn't work as well.
This is very much a good example of, like, something being the first at something. Doing so really well for a very long time, but thankfully we have come a long ways. But the story and the animation and the voice acting and the music keep this movie going.
Mhm.
It is like entirely why you can keep watching it.
And at one point, we almost didn't get the version of the movie we have.
That's true.
Because it did start off as a buddy comedy, and originally it was about toys being sent to heaven.
Well, you know, that does make sense, though, because this was right around the same time where a lot of, like, morality with, not just with, like, not people things, like, whether that be inanimate objects, or dogs, or cats, or barnyard animals, all of those were seen as, like, fairly, like, they weren't successful movies, but they were guaranteed money movies. And so I can see why that would be chosen.
Yeah, just a little bit. I mean, we were also, I think people forget how really dark some children's movies used to be back then.
Oh my gosh. The late 90s were just a horror show for children's shows.
Even late 80s. Like,
it was
Land Before Time, Ferngully.
Yeah. Yeah. There was a lot of, like, questionable problems, and we have seen such a great change in how we handle tough content in children's media, where it's both appropriate for the kids. People are no longer getting nightmares from crows pecking out the eyeballs of the villain at the end of the movie, but we are also not necessarily leaving the parents out of the equation. Like, a lot of movies we have seen, and I do think Toy Story is a good, like, foundation point of when that change started to happen. This is a good marker to say, like, okay, from here on forward, it was easy to just put on a kid's movie and no longer have to worry about, like, will my child now be terrified of trees?
Or you had VeggieTales.
But that was Christian media.
I know.
So, and also there were some VeggieTales where, like, you did question morality because it's the Bible.
I only remember the silly song and the chocolate rabbit. That's, like, the only...
Those are both good.
Yeah.
I will confess I am not familiar with the new version of VeggieTales. I watched up until the original closing of it, so, like, I don't know what the remakes look like. None of the children in my life have been interested in the new VeggieTales. Can't blame them. They look a little weird.
Yeah, same with the stills we've seen, or the poster we've seen for the new Land Before Time.
I'm so mad. Don't get me started. But what I will say is that even with our friends' kids who are, like, just now reaching toddler stage, or a little later for some of my friends, Toy Story is still on their radar.
Yeah.
Like, one of my friends whose kid is now about 5, he just got a Buzz Lightyear for Christmas. Like, this franchise has endured really well, which makes sense because they spent a lot of time making sure it would.
They did. Well, up until a point, after a certain point.
Yes.
Because their first attempt was heavily meddled with by Disney, who forced them to update for what Disney thought would work. And at this point, Disney had only been doing princess adaptations. So classic stories that were just animated at this point. And of which Pixar was really trying to break that tradition.
Yeah.
And
you have to remember that Pixar was not at... Now when we say Pixar, we automatically think of the Disney collabs. But Pixar is still technically not Disney owned. Disney just owns the rights. And the whole reason that Toy Story was able to be the way it is before Pixar took on and said they would agree to do Toy Story, right before that, a different animation group that had been working with Disney cut ties, but agreed to continue letting Disney, like, put their stamp on it and sell it, but it was under their own branding and merchandising. And the name is currently, unfortunately, escaping me, and I didn't write it down. It's bothering me. But because of the precedence of that success beforehand with a different franchise, similar to how Disney does not own Ghibli but produces it, it was a similar situation.
Localizes.
Yes.
They're the North American distributor.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so because there was this precedence beforehand, which was fairly new, fairly recent, but still made them quite a lot of money, Disney was willing to say, okay, yes, because for Disney, they had almost never accepted outside help.
Yeah, the only times Disney had kind of broken away from the traditional animation before before Pixar and Toy Story
Mm-hmm.
was with their collaboration with Tim Burton on The Nightmare Before Christmas.
That's what it was. It was Tim Burton. Tim Burton wanted to cut from Disney.
As well as the use of CGI backgrounds in Beauty and the Beast.
Yes.
But even then, it still didn't fully break away from what they had been doing in the past.
No, and they still very much had like a chokehold on Tim Burton, but he had managed to get them to agree to let him do his own things, continue to hold the license for it. There's some back and forth now that we've learned about the more in-depth, but at the time, that's what they had told Pixar, like, oh, well, look at the success.
Yeah.
Here, we can make it work, which really did help because I think otherwise they would have been forced into much more of a pigeonhole.
Well, and Pixar was almost shut down, but they went back to do it the way they wanted to do it because some of the changes that Disney was forcing upon them really made Woody completely unlikable, just an absolute asshole from beginning to end.
Yeah, which would have been a problem.
Yes, and I mean, there were multiple changes. The story still remained roughly the same, just the base concept of a buddy comedy, and they wanted it to be character-focused.
Yes.
And which Woody originally was a tin toy, but it felt too old-fashioned. They eventually moved into a ventriloquist dummy until they brought it to what we have now. And we'll get into more of the toys as we come along the way because it is quite...
each one was very thought through.
Oh, yeah. And I think that just really shows why Pixar stands out and why it continues to do so well is because of the careful craftsmanship. And I'll reserve my talks of Toy Story 4 for when we get there.
When we get there. But this Toy Story also set a precedent for the amount of detail that is expected out of a Pixar film. And it was intentionally done from the beginning, whereas a lot of other companies go backwards and say like, oh, well, we'll reference our first movie here or here, we'll pull from this and this. From the beginning, Pixar was very detail-minded, which is impressive, especially when you realize how much had to be computer modeled for this movie.
Yeah. So, before I get into it, Chris, what are we drinking today?
Well, the toys don't eat or drink in this movie, but for nostalgia's sake, we have Kool-Aid in the little twisty plastic tube and Capri Sun.
Hell yeah.
Delicious.
Cheers.
Tastes like straight sugar, baby.
Yeah.
I love it. I haven't had this grape in ever.
Well, there is soda at the Pizza Planet.
No,
we don't see anyone...
it's called alien vomit, and I don't know how to get alien vomit, because the little girl stands underneath it, and soda just rains down into her cup.
Yeah.
And as a child, I thought that was so cool, but as an adult, I see the problems.
Children are the problems.
Well, for this movie, yes.
So, Toy Story. We open on a good old-fashioned bank heist, which I like this intro because it's really much, or it really sums up a kid playing with his toys and boxes in imaginative ways.
Yes.
And it's setting up something cute and charming from the get-go, which, like as we mentioned, human models are very, very rough, and they're repeated multiple times.
Yeah, the animators admit that there are actually only 3 or 4 human models in this movie. There is our main man, Andy. There is a model version of his baby sister. There is a model version of the mom who is kind of warped into the neighbor's sister. And then there's Sid.
And there's also like the girl version of Andy that we see from a distance.
It's just Andy's face with longer hair.
No, exactly.
They admitted that they took a lot of shortcuts for the people.
Well, it just goes to show how limited the technology really was back then.
Yeah, like to the point where they were impressed that they were able to fully model the rooms. They were a little worried they were going to have to do like flat rooms, but the house for Andy is fully modeled. To an extent. The neighborhood's not. The neighborhoods are made out of blocks.
Yeah.
But like Andy's living room is fully modeled. Andy's bedroom with his baby sister in it is fully modeled. And this like really blew people's minds. Like, I don't even think it was the audience, because I'm not gonna lie, I don't think any of us actually noticed, because it looks very seamless.
Oh, a bit. But, and to put it in perspective as well, video game console wise, the PlayStation 1 had just come out the year before.
Yeah.
So it was all this stuff is pretty brand new, and the stuff that we grew up on, that it's interesting to see where those overlaps are.
Definitely. Oh gosh, yeah.
And from this opening scene, it also establishes Woody and Andy's mindset of like kid playing with westerns, growing up on the older classics and whatnot.
I also appreciate that because there was such a large number of people writing and working on this in general, not just having like one writer or one art director or anything. Like there was a lot of people who all were kind of almost the same level of having say in what happened in the film. And that I think that helped a lot because it really balanced out what Andy's room looked like to make it into the most uniformly anyone could feel like this was their room as a kid. It's not very specific toy-based heavy. It's not overly boyish either. It's
just a range of toys.
It is a very balanced range. And on top of that, it is a room that is so boring and normal looking that there is now wallpaper specifically for Andy's room, the clouds and everything.
Yeah, it works.
It works really well. It's become iconic.
Yeah, I mean, it makes it feel like it's an open range.
It does, and it also really adds to that, like, childhood aesthetic of, like, not... Because, like, everything in this movie is very period time. Like, the carpet is very early 90s to mid-90s. There is, like, pilled piled rug from the 80s in Sid's house.
Yeah, if I remember right, this movie is more set in the 80s than anything. And all...
Yes.
Well, we get into it a little bit more in the next movie.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But, like, having his room and his toys be so vanilla helped keep this movie watchable even by today's standards.
Oh, yeah. And so from here we don't really cut. We carries into the theme of the movie, You've Got a Friend in Me.
A delightful piece of music by Randy Newman, and one of the most recognizable pieces of song of all Pixar films ever, winning several awards for just this piece.
Oh yeah, no, 100%. And what Pixar wanted to do with this is they wanted to use music in a way that Disney wasn't using. Instead of using it as like a musical number, they use it in a more traditional film score sense, that it helped build that buddiness between Andy himself, but could also be used multiple times as the theme of the movie changed.
Yeah.
And it's also a way to set up Woody as Andy's favorite. Yeah, we just saw him playing with all the other toys, but we have a bigger segment of him just playing solely with Andy.
And even though they handled this music differently than how Disney had been handling its music, it ended up working out really well to match this time period of Disney, even though this is fully a Pixar film. It ended up working out so well that, like, this movie slots so nicely in with, like Tarzan or Beauty and the Beast, where, like, all of these songs, even though this is very distinct, it is very unique, it fits in that styling very nicely, whereas I think if they had gone for, like, really out of the box, really different, it would have made this piece so removed from the rest of the catalog that kids were watching, because whether or not you like it, this is a kid's film, and they're not going to just sit and watch just this.
No.
They're going to watch all of it together, and that was something they actually thought about, because when they were talking through the commentary, they were talking about, like, oh, well, kids who are in this film, what would they be playing with? What songs are they watching? And one of the directors was like, don't lie to yourself. They're watching Disney.
Yeah, no, exactly. Well, I wasn't, but...
Well, yeah. Well, and that's kind of nice, because they had a few Nikos on the cast and crew, it sounded like, because that's who they based it on.
Just a bit. I mean, I wasn't that bad with my toys, but... But the one thing that's great about this scene is that, or the movie in general, is that in 3 minutes, we have the basic setup in the timeline of the move established.
True.
And we have the birthday and the opportunity for a new toy that sets up the first conflict of the movie as well as sets the final goal. Just something that we see in, I'll say, the first 3 Toy Story movies, that a lot of it feels very tight in its writing.
Yes.
Got some complaints in 2, but...
Well, sure. The second's never as good.
No.
But I agree. I think
Empire Strikes Back is pretty...
arguably not the second.
Arguably the second in chronological releases.
True. But there's a lot of seconds for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, the writing in Toy Story is very cleanly and quickly done. And it's also done in a way that, like, using just enough quips between the toys really sells you the entire world. It tells you everything you need to know about the rules of the toy world.
Yes. No, well, not even yet, because when the toys finally come to life, we've had a good 3 or about 3% of the movie we haven't seen any of this.
That's true.
But we do this is where we start building up the humor and setting the different toys apart.
Yes.
Everyone feels special, and that's what they wanted to do with subverting some of the norms, like a cowardly T-Rex or an Etch-a-Sketch that was good at drawing because it's an Etch-a-Sketch, not being run by humans.
And this is where we really get to see the mix and balance between real toys that they had vetted and then also had to reach out to and say, hey, can we use your Etch-a-Sketch in our movie? We promise not to blow it up.
Yeah. Well,
but then they also had to make toys that like did not exist yet, like Rex. They knew that Jurassic Park was popular. Kids would probably have dinosaur toys, but Rex himself didn't exist yet.
I had the dinosaur toys.
I had like the plastic ones from like the farm and home that didn't like move or anything.
Yep.
And like mine had a hole. Mine were not the solid ones. Mine were the hollow ones, and they were for the bath because you could dunk them underwater and then make them puke out the water.
Yes, those were always fun.
Those were the best ones.
But with these traits, they also had to deal with the realities of construction.
Yeah.
Which everyone moves a little bit differently. Like the Slinky dog walks one way, but his tail doesn't always follow 100%.
Yeah.
Rex is very stiff in his movement. Woody's very ragdoll. The army men can't move off of their base.
Yes, and it was very interesting to have them talk about their experiences with, like, having to think that way through.
Mm-hmm.
Because some of the characters were clearly much more, they came to them much more easily, like Bo Peep. And the fact that they assumed that the audience would realize that Bo Peep is obviously his little sister's toy and not Andy's. Not gonna lie, I thought Bo Peep was his toy until yesterday. I'm not gonna lie to you. Because I didn't realize that the little sister was in his room. Like, I didn't realize they were sharing a room. And so it did not occur to me that any of the baby's toys were being played with.
And if you haven't watched it in a while, then I can see that.
And it, like, she is shown, but it's, like, you don't get, like, a sweep of the room with an emphasis on her.
No.
You're so focused on Andy playing with Woody and everyone that you, like, it just does not cross my mind.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, having her move in just kind of a fluid way versus watching the piggy bank try to move with his stiff little porky legs.
Yes.
It's very funny and that they, like, had to go through and, like, not just think about how each character would move, but be based off of how you play with it and what it looks like, what their attitude would be. Which was a really interesting way to do it, but also it really does work, and it's part of the reason why I think these sequels work so well, is because each of these toys is completely unique.
Yeah, and they're established really quickly in this time frame, too. And that's one thing that they did really well, is they tried for establishing a history within this world. And so that's why we have this hodgepodge of toys that we see the toys continued from, like, the early days of Andy playing to, like, we got the little Fisher-Price firemen. And
who are probably the babies. Yeah.
And they tried to keep toys that stood the test of time that were still being sold at the time. The only thing that wasn't being sold was Slinky. Yeah,
but that was because Slinky was old, and now that the Toy Story has happened, Slinky is now back in production.
I saw one at the Walmart Museum when I first moved here.
Yeah, and it's not even like Slinky is being produced by Disney. Slinky Toy is just back. It was funny listening to them talk too about, like, well, when we needed a toy to fill a specific role, like the squeaky toy shark. We know that there are shark toys. We know that there are squeaky toys. We just combined the two. It's no problem. And then them talking about how, like, yeah, when we made Woody and we made Buzz, we realized a little late that, like, someone was going to have to actually make this toy. And they pity the person who has to figure out how to do what we did.
Oh, yeah. And one thing that I think is interesting going back and rewatching this as an adult is there's a lot more mature humor, and some of it's kind of dirty. So, like,
yeah.
And I get that they were trying for something for adults that and teens could enjoy while it was still a kids movie, and I know that's something common with children's movies.
It is.
But I didn't realize, like, how heavy-handed it is at least in the first movie.
The first movie especially is a little bit more on the nose than the others.
Oh, yeah. Like, Bo Peep of, like, you know where I live. Like, hey, come here, lover boy.
Or Mr. Potato Head kissing his own butt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also making him a Irish potato or Irish Catholic potato.
Which is hilarious.
Yeah. But also it gets to set up how these toys interact when people aren't there.
Yeah, that's true.
Because immediately Woody's very serious about this. He's a very likable, like, kind of buddy boss.
Yeah. He reminds me very much of the sort of boss that says, like, everyone's family here, and in his mind, he means it.
Yeah. Well, and they're all joking, but, like, that is their role, is that their job is being a toy, and they have
Yes.
to take it seriously, like, hey, let's play, let's make sure everyone's played with kind of stuff.
Exactly.
And Lasseter said that every man-made object is manufactured for a reason, and the reason for being is to make children happy. Anything that interferes with that is unsettling and strange to them. And we do see that,
Yeah, that's
especially
true.
with how Sid plays with his toys later on.
That's true. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, and as we will see with Buzz in a few.
True.
Because Buzz doesn't act like the other toys.
Bless him.
Yeah. But we also see the further setting up. I forgot to mention, part of the being on the bed is like the prime spot to be. It's the chosen, it's like a throne basically.
Yes, it is a throne, but it also does make sense to an extent. Like, your most prized possession is the thing that you put, like, you sleep with at night.
It's like the pewter plates in colonial times where it wasn't for eating, it was a display plate.
But also, the director brought up a good point during the commentary about how, especially 80s and 90s, it's still a bit of a thing now, but it's so easy to get, like, when something comes out, there is so much of it to consume. But it was really common in the 80s and 90s where if your kid liked a show, you bought everything that went along with that show. You went bedding, you bought the sheets, you bought the curtains, you bought the light switch cover, like, shower curtain, the whole 9 yards. So it makes sense.
I remember Pokemania.
Yeah. Pokemon was a good example.
Yeah.
Star Wars was also a good example.
Yeah, Star Wars, Jaws, Adam Savage's Jaws costume.
Yeah. So, like, them subtly having a Woody, like, bedspread to go along with everything, which we can then later play with, and, like, it instinctively shows something without them having to directly tell you, like, oh, Woody's probably from a TV show, because we don't know that yet. It all does help build this world out so much more.
Well, and I think that wasn't intentional from the get-go of these movies. At least the first one.
It was, though, because when they were making Buzz, they had to talk about how, like, well, what is the things he does?
They said that about Buzz, that Buzz was a continuation of that show, but actually, no, now that you bring it up, because with
Woody would have had to have been.
Yeah, all the merchandise that they have around Woody, that...
Like, the amount of stuff that Andy owned to go with Woody. Yeah, Aunt Woody's show was probably, like, well aged out by this point, but, like, they definitely thought about, like, what sort of thing was Andy consuming, and they built things around that.
Okay, well, that makes sense. Buzz is Woody's the newest one. Who knows what was before? Could have been Slinky Dog, and he had a nondescript bed at the time or something. Yeah. But they all freak out because it's birthday time now. One thing that's interesting and character they put into it is Ham the piggy bank.
I love Ham.
He's a know-it-all because he's constantly looking outside. All the other toys, their perspective of the world is wherever they're in that room.
Yes.
And that's their world.
But piggy banks don't get played with. They get sat on a shelf.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting concept.
But he's always looking outside. He's like, he reminds me of, I don't remember the actual name of it, but in Japanese folklore, there's a scarecrow that knows everything but can't go anywhere.
Yeah, it does. It's similar.
Yeah.
I do also like that, especially more recently, it has been brought to everyone's attention that all of the children at Andy's birthday party are just Andy. And I recently found a fan theory going around about how all of this is happening in Andy's head. Because of that. Unfortunately, it's not. It's just a limitation of computer generation. I like your ideas, but no, it's literally, it all looks like Andy because it is all Andy.
It's like the end of Face of Another where like everyone's face is the same, but that's more poetic than this.
This is not poetic at all. This is just them not wanting to animate 18 different children.
Or have the hard drive space to do that.
They wouldn't have, though. They would not have had the ability to do it.
No, not at all. But we send the army men off to spy, which there's also the one thing I do want to say is the good attention to detail. They did mention that they added enough detail to make it believable.
They did.
And you really see it in the army men because they've all got like that little plastic thing from the molding process that doesn't get fully clipped off.
Yes, when they modeled these characters, they modeled all of these characters. I also really like that you can really tell that the writing staff was a bunch of nerds because when they made the army men, the first thing one of them says was, we knew we had to have one soldier down and do the nobody left behind bit because come on, they're army men.
Well, And on top of that, not only being an Army movie, they got Arlie Ermy, for those who don't know, is a drill sergeant from Full Metal Jacket, to be the voice of Sarge.
And if you don't know Full Metal Jacket, you do recognize the commercial that is parodying Full Metal Jacket.
What?
There's a commercial with it, and I can't remember what... I think it might be for Tide Pin or something like that.
Huh.
It's been a while. I don't watch commercials anymore because I pay YouTube money, but...
Yeah, I haven't had cable in over a decade at this point.
I only see commercials when I visit my parents. But at one point, there was a commercial that I'm pretty sure was for, like, Tide or something like that.
Okay.
But, yeah, no. Like, the amount of, like, fun put in behind the scenes does, like, show through in the movie. Because even though I didn't necessarily, like, immediately jump to, like, oh, well, that's who this actor is, and that's why this joke is funny, I did still find the bit fun. Even if, like, that, like, translation wasn't there.
Yeah, no, they did a very good job of trying to make it feel warlike and blending that kind of, oh, we're going on an espionage covert mission.
Yeah.
And it works really well in comparison with the rest of the toys and building the suspense, especially since for the toys, a new toy could mean one of them goes away, and that's what they're worried about.
Yes, which is hilarious looking at Andy's room, because it doesn't look like any toy has ever left.
No.
I mean, Slinky and Yo-Yo, he has a hockey puck from God knows when that's counted as a toy.
Yeah. Well, that made me bring up some questions, and especially stuff that they bring up in 4.
Yeah.
It's because we see them playing checkers, but the checker pieces aren't alive.
Yeah, no, 3 also addresses this question and concern of, like, what qualifies a toy. So, like, it is interesting that, like, the writers do reflect back on their own work. And we'll talk about, like, what does qualify a toy when we get to that movie.
Okay. Also, there's a small line that I think is easily missed.
Yeah.
It's not really easily missed, it's easily overlooked. They bring up that, oh, there's a new set of bed sheets. And Mr. Ham is like, who brought that kid?
Yeah.
But it's also to show that there's that change coming to the aesthetic of the room.
It's clear that, like, all of the kids' parents were told, like, hey, Buzz is the theme for the party. Mm-hmm. Feel free to bring Buzz stuff.
Yeah. No, exactly. And yeah, right now we don't have a TV in Andy's room, so if he's watching TV, it's downstairs.
Oh, well, and if this is an 80s/early 90s time period, he's 100% watching downstairs in the family room.
Yep, for like the 30 minutes he gets after school.
Oh, and 30 would be generous at this time, yeah.
Yes, it'd be enough for an episode of Buzz Lightyear.
Yeah, and you better be on time, because there's no taping this one. Mm-hmm. You know his mom doesn't have a taper.
No. And I do like that the communication gets cut off and we don't ever find out what exactly it is. But there's this good build-up, especially with the children returning with the new toy. And we don't see the new toy for quite a while.
That's true. They're downstairs all playing with it.
Mm-hmm. And it's a good way to show, like, the chaos of children within a room.
Mm-hmm.
And just... we hear a little bit of like, whoa, it's got lasers, and like, this is the spot for the spaceship. So we know it's a more futuristic toy than what we've seen previously, which is all nostalgic-based items.
That's true. This will be, and like, this is kind of unique in, if you really think about like what toys you had back then for 80s and 90s toys, because a lot of stuff was like a battery-operated noise-making monstrosity. Buzz is really the first battery-operated, like, annoying toy that he's getting. Like, this will be the first, like, probably cool toy.
Yeah, the only thing that's maybe annoying is the speak and spell.
Yeah, the speak and spell can be, but, like, it's also kind of like an educational
or the microphone one.
That one's definitely, okay. Yeah. No, I take that back. I had a cousin who had that. Yes, 100% that was used to make fart noises from across the room.
Yeah. But we are finally introduced to Buzz, who was... but Woody gets shoved off the bed for Buzz being put in place. Very...
poetic.
Poetic and a little violent.
A little, but like at the same time, I do like how the directors and the writers take a lot of steps back to be like, they're not actually real. They are toys. So we must treat them like toys.
Yes.
And so like, yeah, like... to Andy, Woody is just a wooden toy.
Mm-hmm. Well, and he's purposely made white to feel brand spanking new compared to the rest of the toys in the group.
True.
They wanted to make Buzz the ultimate plaything that a child would have wanted back in the day.
It did crack me up real hard when they talk about, like, what features they wanted to have on Buzz. And they really did just combine a bunch of the toys that the writers all had as kids that they thought was, like, this was the coolest thing I had. So, like, the expandable wings, having it talk, having the little light laser thing, having, like, G.I. Joe Action Man was brought up several times where, like, he needs to be posable and he needs to be able to, like, punch stuff. Karate chop action.
I had G.I. Joes for a little bit, but I never really got into the action figures. I was more Lego Connects kind of kid.
I understand that. I had Barbies. We had one Ken. He did lose a leg very quickly. And as the true architect child I was, did I play with my Barbies? No, I built the mansions out of... I wasn't allowed little Legos. We had the big ones. Because they were, like, hand-me-down ones, right?
Yeah.
So, like, all of my Barbies just had, like, very boring houses. I really should have been an engineer.
Yeah.
But, like, really boring houses, and then my one-legged Ken got a lot of wheelchairs built just for him.
Beautiful. But one thing of note, and I'm glad they changed his name, Buzz's name was originally Lunar Larry.
Lunar Larry sounds stupid.
It sounds goofy is what it is.
It does.
Hi, I'm Lunar Larry.
But also... there's a lot of key things in this film that, like, I would never have thought to not name him Buzz Lightyear. Because, of course, he is named Buzz Lightyear. Not only is he, like, that's, like, the perfect name for a toy, but also, like, it references back to actual space, which would have been popular at the time.
Yeah, Buzz Aldrin and also potentially Star Wars.
Yes.
It sounds like Luke Skywalker.
It has the same sort of vibe, same ring, especially if he is based off of a TV show, which we now know he is. And so, like, the fact that it was ever considered anything else is mind-boggling. And this happens a few times throughout the movie where, like, one of the writers will speak up and be like, yeah, we almost didn't name it that. And I'm like, how?
Yeah.
How would you not have named it this?
No.
It's so obvious.
Well, and now it's iconic, but I mean, it's anything you look back at, like, that gets branded. It takes a while to, sometimes it does take multiple iterations, and then you stumble upon, it's like, yes, that's the correct name for it.
And it's also more important, I think, than a lot of other franchises with Pixar to get these little details, like the name of the pizza delivery guy. Even if it's only in there for 4 seconds, it's important because that guy's going to be back in, like, 8 other movies.
Yeah.
Even if he's just in the background.
Or his truck's at least going to be there.
Exactly.
But I also like how initially they introduced Buzz Lightyear as... he feels very Captain Kirk a little bit.
He does.
And like, I have landed on and he doesn't do the whole Shatner, I have landed
but
on a strange
kind of
planet.
thought about doing that. They went through a few iterations of what Buzz was going to be like. I'm glad we landed on this Buzz because I do think that he becomes more likable this way.
Yeah.
Especially for an adult audience. As a child, I thought Buzz was annoying.
Well, the original idea for Buzz was to be more superhero-like.
Yes.
And instead, Tim Allen came with it as like a more trained military idea for it. And I think that works so much better because of course he's a space cadet.
He's a ranger.
Yeah,
damn it. Yeah,
space ranger.
No, well, yes. There's like a whole, it's very Star Trek-esque in his superhero-ness. Like, yes, he has all of the abilities, but he does so in the aspect of science and adventure. Yeah,
and when I brought up that anything that doesn't act like a toy, that looks like a toy, is strange to them, this is exactly where we start to see it, because Buzz is moving at his own pace to begin with.
True.
And it's too quick for Woody to really deal with and puts him out of his comfort zone and not in control anymore, because Buzz, like Captain Kirk, acts like a higher life form of like, look at these primitive creatures.
Well, and also there's such a disconnect between what Buzz understands as reality and what Woody understands as reality. And as a kid, it's one of those details in the writing that you don't necessarily get. And while I do think the jokes they purposefully were like putting in for the adults to keep interest, I honestly think though that this level of like thinking and writing was much more entertaining for the adults, and part of the reason why this franchise was able to continue on.
Oh yeah.
Because like having the adult mindset to sit there and think about how like technically neither of them are wrong, they just both don't understand what's happening.
No.
Like, there's no communication.
Well, and here I think that leads in a little bit to a theory I have with this too. Yes, one, it is the communication of them both trying to lead, but their
Yes.
points of view are different. But what I think a little bit is that it's been so long since any of them were new toys.
Yes,
is
definitely.
that they've all forgotten that maybe that's how all toys start off, is they think they are whatever packaging says they are.
Or Buzz was dropped on his head as
Yes.
a small toy. I don't know.
Well, that was my other thought too. But I think that we see that quite a bit in other movies, but not yes
Well,
and no.
And even in later Toy Stories, though, we do get later on. We will get a chance to discuss what it means to be a brand new toy, because we do see that a brand new, fresh out of the box toy, especially one that like flew off the shelves and didn't have time to sit, like this Buzz Lightyear specifically probably did. They are confused and they do not know what's happening, because like later on when we reset Buzz, suddenly he's a completely different person.
And all the Buzz, and like in the second movie we see the Barbies, and
Yes.
the Barbies definitely are that stereotypical party Barbie.
Yeah, but they've also lived on a shelf a long time, so they're living a different reality than like Woody and the gang, who's like their entire understanding of the world revolves around Andy.
Fresh off the press versus veteran toys.
And also versus like I've sat on the shelf a long time toy.
Yeah.
Like it is very interesting to think about as an adult, and something that as a kid you don't have to think about or worry about, because the story is entertaining enough without that sort of thought process.
Yeah, and one thing I will say, all the other toys, they're being such dicks to Woody about. Like,
they really are.
Like, it's like, this guy's supposed to be your friend. Like, yeah, it just kind of, I don't know. It's weird going back on it, because I don't remember them being so mean, but they are constantly mean throughout this movie to Woody. Like, it starts off at kind of like a joking level where it's like, oh, he's an ass kisser. Of course, he's because he's Andy's favorite. But they're just mean to him. Yeah, they're just straight out assholes.
They are, but I do appreciate that there is a consistency in this movie that does make them feel somewhat more believable and realistic. Where, like, they are consistently the same level of ass to each other and to, like, it's not like they're just picking on Woody. Like, they are all consistently one-liney, quirky people, which translates into being kind of an ass.
Yeah.
And then as the movie progresses and we need them to, like, have thoughts and feelings on Buzz and that sort of stuff, like, they don't necessarily change how they express themselves, which works. It's not my favorite, but, like, it does work. It does not change, like, who they are. It does not make them less likable. It just is a consistency that works for a background character, because we're really more focused on Woody and Buzz having growth and development.
Well, and on top of that, from here on, they really try to make Woody unlikable, and he is. Like, he becomes quite rude and just really trying to take his power back. That's why he put them together as the old regime.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, but one detail that I like that they pointed out is that the reason they chose a spaceman and a cowboy is not because they were fans of the future movie Aliens and Cowboys.
Which is a disappointment, but I understand.
It's because both deal with the untamed frontier.
True.
And in a way, I mean, you see it in film history that when the Westerns were dying out, we started seeing more futuristic flicks that took their place, really.
Yeah, and we do continuously go back and forth between this, like, exploration of the past versus exploration of the great future, as far as, like, adventure movies go.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, and it also works because they are both so opposites of each other and also, like, what they are made up of. Woody is very floppy. He is a cloth and wood toy, whereas Buzz is all hard plastic minus his little squishy baby head.
Yeah, no, I assume that's even hard plastic.
The version my brother had as a child, that one was like a hard rubber, whereas the rest of them is a hard plastic. Don't know if that's what they intended, but he does make a squeaky noise later when Woody punches him.
True. So you might
I don't know, though.
Probably right there.
They did say they added that just because they needed to tone the violence down a little. So, like, I don't know.
Make it more comic violence.
Exactly.
Yeah. But we do now get this part of Woody being replaced. And again, using the music that feels more like a traditional film. And it's the song is Strange Things. And it just fits so well with this movie. Like, all the music works so well.
Well, the movie, and it also helps that this music stands alone very well, but it was also not music that was well popularized beforehand. Like, this was music for this movie, but it stood alone really well, which is an easy recipe for, like, a good music.
Yeah. Well, and his whole world's coming down around him, and he's put in the toy box while Buzz is now set on the high seat.
And we see that the bed sheets were in fact Buzz Lightyear bed sheets.
And the room changes as well. The wallpaper changes.
And it is interesting going back and watching it as an adult, and especially watching it as an adult with the knowledge of the rest of the movies to come. Because when you first watch it, especially as a kid, you only read this as Woody getting his feelings hurt and being replaced by the new and the better. And as an adult, you watch it and just see a little boy growing up and changing interests.
No, exactly. And on top of that, Buzz is trying to be so nice to Woody, and he's nice to everyone.
It is a little, like, frustratingly nice, which, like, it balances out, but it is a very interesting dynamic.
He's too nice is what it is.
Yes, and, like, it is interesting, too, like, what sort of changes he brings are changes that, like, from someone who understands the world as a toy are not necessary, like exercising.
Yeah.
He doesn't need to exercise as a toy.
But no, he's a space ranger.
Did you like to see that the word reader in the background is counting out the calories?
Yes.
So cute.
It's adorable. But all of this, it's time to be introduced to Sid and Scud, which...
my two favorite characters, to be honest with you.
Sid was based on the writers as kids, as they like to destroy their toys.
One of them admitting that, like, by the end of Christmas, none of his toys were, like, he opens them Christmas morning, end of Christmas Day, not one of them's left.
Yeah, as well, Sid isn't wholly evil. Like, from a toy's point of view, he is evil.
From a child's point of view, you read him as evil. But as an adult, especially an adult who has either you were one or you had friends who were kind of a destructive kid, it's easy to see Sid in a different light. Yeah,
he's just a dickhead preteen, basically.
He's a preteen, but he's also... one of the writers talks about how they felt that Sid was the only truly creative character in the entire movie, like the only creative kid, because they liked to see him as the sort of kid who takes his stuff apart to learn how it goes together, and you do get that vibe in how he has reconstructed his toys, in what his room looks like. He's clearly done a lot of tinkering. Yeah. Granted, it's preteen boy angsty tinkering, but it is tinkering.
Yeah. One thing, they did want this to be a G.I. Joe, but G.I. Joe said no.
Yeah, not surprising. They do blow up this toy.
Yeah.
In fact, little bits of his arms go flying across the screen, and they were worried that might be too much.
Well,
it's so quick.
Well, it is, but like if you think about it, basically what these toys are watching, it was what equates to their world as a public execution.
And they probably see it like every Wednesday.
Yeah, like every couple weeks, this kid comes out and executes a toy in front of them.
That's true, but at the same time, this is something that the writers did a really good job balancing. Where to the toys, this is a live execution. To the kids, this is just an asshole with some small fireworks.
Yeah, I do wonder if Sid is part of the reason for the move.
I do wonder that as well, but it's not really made clear. Some of the fan theories do mention and point out that, like, Andy's mom seems to be the only parent, and maybe they are downsizing because of that. Others point to the fact that, like, they probably just outgrew their house because the kids are sharing a room, and so maybe now that the baby is getting bigger, it's time for, a 3-bedroom as opposed to the 2. That sort of stuff. So there's a lot of fan theories. The writers never specifically say the reasoning. Yeah,
I think it's just the limitations of the time, and they just kind of rolled with it to make a more strong female or strong motherly character.
I would agree with that. Yeah. Also, like, they admitted heavily in the first one how much they hated animating people. So, like, I agree. If we don't have to animate the dad, let's not.
Or it's like Pokemon. You just have a mother and you forget that the father is ever there.
Professor Oak, we all know that.
But one thing I do also want to point out is that the houses in this movie are quite older.
They are.
They're not fully mass-produced Levittown houses, but they are early suburbs that were common between the mid-1800s and about the 1940s, so they do live in a older neighborhood.
They do.
But also, how is the detached garages, because they're prevalent in post-Levittown. So the houses were built sometime after the 1940s in this movie.
An older house.
Yeah, multi-story.
Which explains the delightful carpet that you get to look at through this movie.
Yes. But now we're introduced to what's or that we're told that they're going to go to Pizza Planet.
Pizza Planet!
And you can only bring one toy.
Oh my god. Who will you pick?
It's obviously going to be Buzz, which, to be fair, Woody should have been worried because of that. I mean, it fits so much better that Buzz is going to.
It's very obvious that, like, this is a new obsession for Andy, is just space.
Yeah. Well, and this is the part where he is the most unlikable, is he's manipulative and tricking Buzz into helping get a lost toy that's stuck.
Yes, I do appreciate that this is toned down a bit. I do think this is maybe the weakest writing for me out of the whole movie. Mostly because I see very clearly how they went from just Woody pushing Buzz out the window to, well, that was too maniacal. We needed to set it up. I don't feel like this was enough of a setup for it to not just solely be Woody's fault.
It's a bit too much Rube Goldberg-y for you, I think.
I agree. And so it just, despite this all being, like, you know, top tier writing, this is for me like the weakest of a top tier writing.
I think it works for a younger audience because if you push him out too quickly, one, it makes Woody seem absolutely evil instead of this being an absolute accident. He only meant for him to fall down the side like the Magic 8 Ball, which good comedy there.
Yeah, hilarious.
But it's a fun, actiony way to get him out the window.
It is. I also appreciate the giant nerds that they were using sound and even storyboarding from Indiana Jones. Very nice.
Specifically Raiders of the Lost Ark with the boulder falling and the pins falling were the sound of the arrows.
Delightful. And this was one of the ones that, like, definitely reads the clearest, I think, out of all of the references. There's several, but this one is the most obvious to me.
And unfortunately, there is a Wilhelm scream.
Of course there is. Look at when this movie was made.
It's every movie. I just watched a movie from this year with Nicolas Cage called The Retirement Plan that had the goddamn Wilhelm scream in
Nicolas Cage put it in there to be classy.
I don't know. It's so dumb. But Buzz is out the window, and also the other toys. So, to be fair, on Woody's defense, it was kind of an accident, but it brings up more questions, much like Whoville.
Yeah.
They're very much going to lynch him. There's no there's no court system.
Of course not.
Which here's the thing.
There's no Judge Judy toy in this room.
Is it figurative murder or is it actual murder? So, like, if they had lynched Woody, would they have, like, killed him? And then, like, they're having, because he dies to the toys, but he doesn't die to Andy. So when Andy does go back to play with him, is he playing with a toy corpse?
So, according to Toy Story's own logic from the later movies, as long as it can be recognizably put together in some way, like we see with Sid, and later on with Buzz's own arm, you are not dead. Toys cannot just die because you have taken them apart. So him falling, he's not dead. He's just outside.
Well, no, like, if they were going to lynch Woody.
If they were going to lynch Woody, they would have to lynch him into such small pieces that when it came back, he could not be put back together. Thus, he is dead.
That is terrifying.
That would be terrifying. However, I think the thing that, like, makes the most, like, adult silliness out of this is the other toys recognize, I think by this point, that Buzz is a little special and doesn't realize he is a toy. Thus, Buzz does not know that he can just go and walk to sit next to the car until he's found by the people.
Buzz is the special needs toy that they're just like, okay.
You just push the special needs toy out the window. Yeah, unfortunately, a little bit. Yeah.
He's pre-Forky.
He is pre-Forky. Yeah, unfortunately. Because if one of the other toys had fallen out the window, I'm sure they would have, tried to use the monkeys to get him. But also, like, they know that they are not leaving yet. They know they're going to the Pizza Hut. Just go sit by the front door. You will be brought back inside. You have Andy's name printed on your foot. Yeah. They will know who you are. Just go sit next to the garage.
He's not that smart. And if he did that,
But that's the thing. Buzz doesn't realize he's a toy, so no. Buzz doesn't know to do that.
No, and he's more active in following because he does grab Woody after not being able to find Buzz, obviously.
Of course, because you're not going to go empty-handed.
Yeah, and this is the part where, like, Buzz is actually starting to take action because we get onto the gas station, which was inspired by go-gi gas stations of the 50s.
I love it. They look great.
Yeah, and I like all these, like, little bits that sets the movie to be so much older than I think we thought of it as kids because we felt it was modern, but I don't think we ever felt
it was modern because the toys they picked we had, but they picked toys that they knew weren't going to go out of production very quickly.
See, Yeah, I don't think I really had any of these until after Toy Story, though.
I definitely had an Etch-a-Sketch. I was terrible at it.
Mm.
I definitely had... I didn't have Woody himself, but I had lots of, like, dolls that were Woody-esque.
Okay.
Granted, they were from God knows where, so, like, they were all over the place with, like, merchandising and what sort of character it was. And definitely had a piggy bank, definitely had a Magic 8-Ball, definitely had a yo-yo. I did not have a hockey puck with arms and feet, but I did have a hockey puck.
I'm sure I had a couple of these, but whatever I could remember was quickly forgotten because of Pokemon in like 2 years.
Understandable. I did not have a Pokemon phase as a child.
It's not a phase. It's a lifestyle.
I am aware. Thank you, Emo.
But no, I think that all these like little details definitely firmly roots this movie in the late 80s.
I would agree that like the background definitely does.
But it never states it specifically, which I think also makes it a bit timeless too.
Oh, I think it especially helps because like whether or not you want to admit it, the 80s are now far enough back that it feels like a retro memory. Mm-hmm. So the fact that these are all back far enough, like, yeah, most kids nowadays aren't going to recognize this carpet. They're not going to recognize that gas station as like the style it is. It's why
how it's set up is so that way it's nostalgic for the parents watching it.
And now it's stylized for the kids.
Exactly.
Yes.
But I also like at this point because Buzz is no longer playing the nice guy, and he's got a darker side. He's put up with enough of this bullshit.
I love how their fight scene starts out much like a WWE match, and it's great.
Well, and on top of that, everything about this movie is just a continuous flow of decisions because you have to keep the kids focused and entertained. You can't have any dull moments, really.
True.
And, like, the lulls you have to be over so quickly, like Woody with the 8-Ball. You have to add a little bit of comedy and then quickly go into the action, which is why I think the action works better instead of him just kicking him out the window.
Yeah, no, I do agree.
Yeah. But also, imagine having to play dead, knowing that you could potentially be crushed under the wheel, just sitting there as the impending doom of a truck tire almost flattens your face.
And this is something that they don't directly address, but they do kind of hint at more and more as you get into movie 2 and movie 3. You can see how Buzz's influence does affect Woody and Woody's smaller decisions. Because it's very clear that Woody is so trained that when he sees any movement from people, he plays toy. Mm-hmm. Whereas in the second and third movie, we do see him make the same decisions that Buzz does, where instead of laying there, he will run if he knows that he can get away with it.
Yeah, and Buzz even stiffs up a little bit, which is kind of weird for like his role in this, which... Honestly, I do like their dynamic of, you are a toy. You're a sad, strange little man.
A delightful line. Also interesting that the original working title of the movie was You Are a Toy.
Yeah, it works.
Cute, but I like Toy Story better.
Yeah, and to be fair, Buzz would be in a mental asylum if he was a human.
Yes, 110%, but also, like, this does explain later Buzz decisions in later movies they make, so I'm okay with it. Like, he's consistently silly.
Also of note, this movie all takes place in a week, so...
This is a fast move. Mm-hmm. They have a birthday party and then they pack up and leave.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is like nothing is packed up like the week before.
I would like to think that the mom has packed up a lot of stuff, but it's all the stuff that like the guests aren't going to see. So she's like purposely like, okay, we're going to have all of this done. We're going to have Andy's birthday party, and then I'm going to pack the night of Andy's birthday party after all the guests leave. And then we're going to go to the Pizza Hut, which isn't at our house. That way they don't see our house.
Pizza Planet does make sense if you're packing and you don't want to cook or all your cookware is packed away.
Exactly. So like I do feel like there was... I'm sure that this like level of thought was not like necessarily straightforward for them, but it does all work out, which is nice.
Yeah. But even after they're fighting, there's a Pizza Planet truck that arrives, which...
I love this Pizza Planet truck, much like a lot of people.
It feels so nostalgic a little bit for me as well, because even though I was never a delivery guy, I remember having to travel with maps, or like, I understand not knowing an area and having to be that delivery person to like, hey, do you know where such and such location's at? Because...
You don't know, yeah.
Yeah, this is before navigation device. I mean, we didn't have a Navigon until just towards the end of our stay in Germany, so like 2003-ish.
It also works because I feel like at some point most of us have had the experience of either owning or having a friend who owns a real junker and who also drives with a lead foot with the radio blasting. So having that level of despair and terror that Woody is experiencing in the back really does like instead of just being a silly scene, it does kind of add to the world.
Mm-hmm. No, exactly. And that's the thing that, again, they tried installing is that this world has a history to it.
Yes.
And you can easily start nitpicking like little things, but I think that's what makes this movie stand up so well is that it all just feels like it works so well together, even if it's unintentional.
Yes.
Because that's one thing I heard recently in an interview, and I can't remember exactly who it was, but they were talking about the writing process, and if they've always been asked, did you intentionally write all these meanings to it? And he's like, no, not really. There's a lot of times where I'll write something that I don't put two and two together, but someone picks up on that. That's why I think a lot of English teachers stuff is bullshit. Sure.
But at the same time, like, the fact that your fans can make those connections and they don't necessarily prove everything wrong, it's just another fun layer that can be added, I think does help a lot. I also think it helps that by this point, Tom Hanks had really, like, put his all into Woody to the point where he kept asking whether or not he was screaming too much.
Yeah. Well, and to be fair, Woody is, Buzz is pushing Woody too far, because, like, again, Buzz should be in whatever the toy equivalent of a mental asylum is.
That's true. That's true.
And on top of that, when Woody does calm down, it's all to be manipulative to Buzz, to force him to do what he wants, what he needs him to do to get back home. True. And to be fair, it is I will defend Woody a little bit. It is for the greater good of the two of them, but it's not the nicest way to go about it.
No, but at the same time, like, it is very interesting watching this as an adult, because you can really think through both of these characters' thought processes, because they do not directly just tell you what they're thinking the whole time.
No, exactly. And also when they do hop in the truck, like, you get that little bit of cosmic revenge to Woody.
Yeah, a little bit.
The toolbox is bouncing him around, but also, how did the driver not see Buzz?
I have some theories.
Okay.
Based off of other delivery drivers that I know who also drive like this.
Okay.
The amount of attention to detail to their own car is very lacking. I love you, my friends. But you would not know if another animal was living in your car, and I know this, because there's so many bottles, there's so many tissues, there's so much trash in your car, that a Buzz Lightyear figurine strapped in on the opposite side of a pizza container from you, you would never know.
Oh, he's sitting by the pizza container.
He's behind the pizza.
Okay.
So it's not even like this guy's that unobservant. There is some question on how Buzz clicks in, because, like, that logic doesn't quite work with,
or
like,
why?
Well, that's just cute. But, like, because
he's a goody two shoes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But, like, the logic of, like, where the buckle is versus where the pizza is, and, like, the spacing of the car doesn't actually work, but, like, it doesn't matter. The idea of where he's located versus, like, him buckling up being the two shoes versus poor Woody having to deal with the box in the back that's, has just been banging around for months.
Yeah.
It's never come out of the back of that truck.
I feel that. I had a cowboy hat since my brother's bachelor party / wedding
Still
almost
back
a year
there?
ago. No, it's gone, but, like,
Well,
it was
it
was there for, like, a good 10 months. But finally we were on to Pizza Planet, which I guess was changed last minute because originally it was Pizza Putt. It was a putt-putt place.
Which, okay, don't get me wrong, putt-putt place with pizza does sound really cute. However, how obvious is it that it's Pizza Planet? Of course it's Pizza Planet.
Yeah, it works so much better with Buzz in that, and why, like, Andy's so hyped about it.
Yes, 100%. And also, like, I love how when they were thinking about this, they admitted that they go, we wanted to make a place that every child in America would demand to go to, but unfortunately it's fake.
Yeah, no.
And I think they succeeded, but then as an adult, rewatching this with, like, a very critical eye, there's, like, nothing in Pizza Planet, and I kind of love that for it.
No, it's just a lot of arcade, and I do have
It's not
questions.
even that many arcade games.
Well, and I think that's just limits of the technology.
I agree, but also it does crack me up a little bit to think of it like a CC's Pizza.
I've never been to CC's.
It's like 4 arcade games at best.
Oh, okay.
Maybe 10 if you're at a big one. It's fancy, but half of those games don't work.
It's supposed to be, I guess, more equivalent to our Dave & Buster's.
Yeah, I think Pizza Planet was 100% meant to be a Dave & Buster's.
Yeah. But I do have one question about the entrance to this place.
Oh, me too.
But first off, the guards are inspired by the Cylons on Battlestar Galactica.
They are fantastic. They are not ADA compliant.
Yeah, nor code compliant, because you have to have that door fully open because they cross over the very top of it.
Unless those are breakaway.
Yeah.
They could be breakaway for clearance purposes, but I don't know if I could get that past.
Yeah, you'd need like probably an 8-foot door to get that.
That or they would need to be really tall.
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, if you were planning on building your own pizza planet, you would need to rethink the opening/entrance doors, but it is very cute.
Yeah. No, one thing
I also have questions about the soda pop dispensing machine that I mentioned earlier. So there's just like an alien's head, and a little girl walks up. There's not even like a counter. She just walks up with her and holds her cup up like an offering bowl, and the alien mechanic pukes into it, and she carries it away. How many kids have missed?
A lot.
So many.
I got an Instagram feed of a model trying to pour water into their mouth from like some shower that was above.
Same difference, but with children and sticky.
Wet titties.
Not the same.
But also, I do like how they build up this place where they're sneaking into a burger case. Is kind of fun. Also, for a movie that references pizza multiple times,
they don't actually show any pizza.
We see zero pizza.
We don't see actually any food in this.
No.
And I do think there's a reason for that. They talk about multiple times how at this time with CGI, things looked incredibly plasticky. Mm-hmm. And that was part of the reason it had only really been done for very small scenes or background bits.
Liquid was very, very hard to animate back then. We didn't have a lot of the engines that auto do the processes of what water needs, what water should do when it ripples.
And food is something that humans are very capable of telling when food looks off. Mm-hmm. Which is why even if your commercial food looks good, it is very easy for people to look at it and say, oh, that's commercial food. I know that's not what it's supposed to look like. My
favorite is the AI generated, like, people eating.
Yes. We are very programmed to know what food looks like, and so I fully believe that part of the reason that there is not a single piece of food anywhere in this movie, there's no cake for Andy's birthday, there's no people in the background eating, the only food we see is the puked out soda pop from the alien thing, and even that's really fast and quick.
I just don't think they had the capabilities to really animate it well.
I don't think they could animate food in a believable method. No. And so they left it out. Like, there's not even French fries on the ground.
True.
So, like, but I kind of applaud them for that because it would be very distracting, especially because this place is a visual nightmare. Everything glows. Everything is blinking.
It's absolute chaos.
There's so many people running around, and half of them look like Andy.
Yeah. I do like their nod to Whack an Alien.
I do like Whack an Alien. That's cute.
Not to Alien,
of
the
course.
chest burster. But it's just, there's so much going on, and it is a little bit, like, I get it. It's supposed to be confusing for the toys.
Yes.
And I do appreciate that, even though Woody figures out a plan to get out of there,
Buzz fucks it up.
Yeah, Buzz ruins it because he's thick-headed, and he finds the rocket ship that's really just the claw game. Cause
I love this claw game, though, and this has become like a cornerstone piece of Toy Story, and it was almost non-existent because this is how unimportant they thought this claw machine. These stupid little aliens have become a cornerstone piece to Toy Story's branding. Mm-hmm. They are everywhere nowadays. You can get merch of them. They are on t-shirts. They are the mochi set at Tokyo Disneyland. You can eat these little suckers' faces. Like, when people say Toy Story, this little stupid alien thing is like the top thing.
It's about as iconic as Buzz and Woody.
Honestly, maybe more, because he's easier to draw and logo onto stuff, whereas Buzz and Woody are both more detailed. This little stupid fring, like, he's everywhere, and like you know it's Toy Story. And so, but he almost didn't exist. He was almost slices of pizza wearing sunglasses because they were like, why not? And then they went, no, aliens, obviously, duh.
Yeah, and even they're pointing to the claw. The claw. Inspired by Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Because of course. Mm-hmm. Again, I love it when nerds spend all of their nerd energy writing.
Oh yeah, and they are 100% nerds, because quickly after, like, we bring Sid in, like, it's okay, shit's gonna go bad because Sid's here.
Of course.
But these little aliens, they're so hopeful for the future. Like, I do wonder if they're just like they're just as dumb as Buzz right now, or as dense as Buzz, because who taught them about the lore of the claw that's going to take them to the other world? Like, it makes
They've made this up and you know it. They have to have.
Yeah.
Because the only thing new they would ever meet is more of them when they get dumped in once a week.
It makes me think of the Food and Sausage Party.
Yeah, where it's all just a little bit too stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
A little bit. Not as violent, but still fun.
Well, yes.
And also, Sid's quite good at this game.
Okay, it is kind of implied that Sid is left to his own devices a lot.
He's a latchkey kid. That's what also sets it in the 80s.
Yes, and his sister is old enough that he's not, like, no one really needs to be home to watch either of them. They are both kind of independent of needing attention. So it is not unreasonable to assume that Sid gets a bit of an allowance and he is at this parlor regularly.
Which is kind of scary considering how young Sid's sister seems to be.
And also, like, they call Sid, like, a teenager, but he seems more pre-teeny to me. But also, again, if this is set in the 80s, it doesn't matter.
If he's 13, he still feels pre-teeny, but he's technically a teenager.
Exactly, which I think fits in very well.
Yeah. They all get taken away because he pulls the one alien away, and it's like, oh, Buzz Lightyear figure.
Hell
and then he
yeah.
gets Woody on top of it, because Woody's...
I do like that even the animators admit that this is not how the claw machine would actually function, but they don't care.
No. I like that they're like, it's a movie, who gives a shit about some of this?
Yeah.
Like, the fine details don't matter, it's just the feeling of it all.
And it does work. Like, you understand the anxiety that Woody is having in this moment. Buzz is too stupid for his own good.
Yeah, because actually, I don't think Buzz has seen... No, Buzz has seen Sid do his
He has,
public
but he doesn't seem
execution.
to, like, register that could be him.
Yeah.
Like, he still feels very much like he's above toys.
Yeah. But obviously it's the little green men who push him up. Wow.
They kind of, like, wait, like, they kind of, like, body surf them along.
I just get their point. They're little green men.
They are.
Yeah. But it's also a good way to bring them back home after the failed mission to get on the stroller.
Exactly.
Also, Sid's such a dick to his poor sister.
He is, but this is something that is interesting to watch as an adult, because as a child, I think it's very easy for you to watch Toy Story and give a very, like, strong and hard answer depending on what the movie says you're supposed to feel. So the movie says Sid is a bad guy, they put him in a black skull shirt, they show him blowing some stuff up. Sid is a bad guy, no questions asked.
Yeah.
As an adult, and also listening to the writers and the directors talk about Sid, it is much more clear that they did not intend for Sid to be seen as the ultimate evil. He is just a little bit of an ass because he's the older brother.
Well, and on top of that, if we go off the theory that he's a latchkey kid,
yeah,
he's able to do whatever the hell he wants, because basically once we do get to see Sid's room, and of course he tears apart a toy and replaces her head to screw with his sister, not something unforeseeable from what a brother would do. I was
gonna say, like, whether or not that is your family dynamic, this is an accurate family dynamic to some extent.
It feels like the writers had brothers and sisters.
They 100%, and one of them admits to being Sid. He's like, no, I was Sid.
Well, and on top of that, like, you start seeing Sid's room. He's a kid of bad taste. He's listening to some bad punk bands or something in the background. But you see all these, like, bad horror movie posters. He's just a kid who watches too much sci-fi. He's that edgelord that you went to high school with.
He's 100% just a dumb edgelord with a bad haircut.
Yeah. Well, they all have bad haircuts, so...
Well, yeah, but Sid's is really atrocious.
Iconically bad.
It's oh man. Sid's is something.
Yeah. And we're introduced to Sid's toys or victims, which really they make it look like a horror show. And specifically it makes me think of what's his name? Todd Browning's Freaks, the very end scene of Freaks where they're all climbing through the mud. The dude who's got no legs has a knife in his mouth, and they're gonna kill the
I'm not gonna lie, so, like, as an adult, especially an adult who likes horror now, like, I wasn't a horror kid, but I am a horror adult. All of Sid's toys just feel like bad punk art.
Yeah.
Like, he's outgrown them, he's a teenager, like, in his mind, I'm sure he thinks of himself as a teenager. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like, one of the writers who described him as the most creative kid in the movie, I think they were right. I think Sid's just got a really, like, interesting way of expressing himself.
Yeah, it makes me think of, like, my brother told me there was one like, one of his digital design classes or something. Someone used, like, Hello Kitty and, like, put them in, like, fascist wear or something to make it like, anti-establishment.
It feels very much like, I knew so many of those kids in high school.
Yeah.
Sid is that kid.
Exactly.
Like, Sid's fine. Like, Sid's not the villain we all imagined him as a child.
Mm-hmm.
But he's also, like, Sid needs maybe to pick a new favorite interest.
Yeah.
Or maybe...
follow it and become a film director or something.
Or like maybe branch out and get the opportunity to widen the horizon of horror. There's more to it than just baby heads and lava lamps.
Yeah. We do also get to see Buzz's karate chop action.
Finally. We've been told about it. This is the first time we've gotten to use it. I do love that Buzz is still confused.
Yeah. The fact that Woody's able to control him.
And he's just like, how are you doing that?
But we cut back to Andy's for a little bit, and everyone's still searching. And we do get Andy's attention back to Woody specifically, because even though Buzz is the new thing, in his heart, he still loves Andy.
Of course. Of course. Like, it's one of those...
loves Woody.
Of course. Like... It's definitely one of those things where the later movies, I think, do more emphasis on trying to show the humans, like, love back towards the toys, but it is not missing entirely from this version, or from this movie.
No, it's quick. It's a quick enough moment that it's not, then here's the thing, again, with them, the writing being so tight and quick, it's like a minute of the movie.
Yes.
And we're already back on to Sid.
Yeah. Doing Sid stuff.
Interrogating Woody.
Because he definitely watches, like, crime shows when his parents aren't watching.
He's just imitating, like, some war movie he saw as a kid.
Oh, in his dad's room.
Yeah.
Because his dad has his own, like...
beer cave.
Yeah, his dad's got his own man cave that definitely no one is allowed in.
No. But this is also the scene where I don't think the lighting works as well. It's a bit harsh at times.
I think part of it is they really wanted Sid's room to permanently feel dark. Like, Sid only has the lamp. He doesn't have overhead lighting because he took the light bulb out or something along those lines. And while I see what they wanted and I totally get that fits Sid's character, I don't think the lighting animation can quite keep up.
No, it's just the limitations of what it was for that time. When it first popped up in my rewatch, I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
But I've accepted that this is what it is.
Yeah, like, it's not the worst thing I've ever watched, and that's saying something, but it's also definitely, like, the improvements in lighting technology versus the second one, significantly different.
Oh, yeah. Well, and also, I like that Woody is constantly trying to think of ways to escape.
Yeah.
He's immediately, once Sid's gone, he's like, okay, now we can leave. Doesn't even have a plan, but I think that shows how desperate he is to get out.
Yes.
Is they're willing to do this without a plan, which of course is ruined by Scud out the stairs.
Okay. I love Scud. Scud is fantastic. Scud, however, there's a very small detail to Scud that escaped my notice as a child, but now as an adult I cannot not see it. All of Scud's teeth are pointy canine needle teeth.
I did not notice that.
All of Scud's teeth are needle teeth. He looks like a Tim Burton thing because he has a mouthful of canines.
And also, he's like, of the characters, like, we talk about the human models, Scud is rough.
And part of...
pun intended.
Yes. Part of that is because Scud, specifically they wanted a bull terrier, which at the time, and for when the adults in the audience, they would have been familiar with a bull terrier as being a mix between a quote-unquote good family dog. They were very popular for a time period thanks to the Little Rascals, and then moving on to having something that was seen as more of how we see pit bulls to an extent, where, it's a little bit more dangerous, they're a backyard chain dog, they're maybe not the best dogs, like, something in between those two would have been a recognizable, like, figure in this time when the movie came out. I think the only one that people really are going to recognize is the Target dog. And even that one is kind of out of public eye. They've kind of moved over to, like, a cartoony thing.
Yeah, so I've never seen Little Rascals.
You would hate it so much.
I've seen a clip or two, and I know I hate it. Alfalfa.
Yeah.
I've seen clips of it. I've seen enough. But I would think, my first time seeing a bull terrier,
I mean, he was a mixed bull terrier at best.
Yeah.
He was very pit bully. But yeah, there's
Babe 2, pig in the city.
Babe 2 also, yeah. So, like, it would have been a recognizable breed.
Danger dog.
A danger dog, but also, like, they were in enough TV that it would have been a good mixed dog to have.
Mm-hmm.
As, like, oh, well, it's kind of dangerous, but it's not too dangerous. But bull terriers naturally just look silly. Let's be real.
Yeah.
They're very cute. They naturally look dumb.
They look like someone modeled a pug's face or like a short-nosed dog and like blender and just
Pulled the nose.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other problem with Scud, other than the demon teeth living in this dog's mouth, is one of the directors from Disney, it is said, walked through, saw Scud's model, and made a note that he really thought it needed whiskers. And so they spent a lot of extra time adding whiskers to the dog. And honestly, you barely notice them. They just kind of look fuzzy at times.
It works enough.
During the close-ups, I think it's fine. It's when he's farther away that it looks a little silly.
Mm-hmm.
The other problem is Scud walks like a toy because he has the stiffest movements. And the worst part is Scud spends 90% of his time on stairs.
Yeah, and
which is not the natural habitat of any dog, let alone Scud. Honestly,
we barely see him because, like, he's only used really to push Buzz into the father's room.
Yes.
And push Woody back into his house, or into Sid's room.
Yeah.
But there's a couple things about the house that I want to point out.
Okay.
One, this also adds to the neighborhood feeling older, is Sid's house, at least layout-wise from what we've seen, it feels older than Andy's, especially with all the wallpaper that feels like it would have been more early or late 70s or late 80s or
the
early
carpet
80s.
Is 100% early 80s.
The carpet is the shining carpet.
Yes, it is.
Which is
awesome.
It is.
And there's the shining carpet. There's actually 2 carpets in Sid's house. There's the carpet in the hallway, the shining carpet, and then there's carpet in Sid's room, which is supposed to look a bit like an abandoned attic room that Sid just took over. And that carpet is the moss green carpet that my grandmother had, and it has different height piles to make it look like little moss patches throughout. And yeah, it's something.
Well, and the other thing too is once we're in Sid's dad's room, that is definitely an old TV.
It is.
It's you got your wooden frame around it, and the channel's controlled by a wrench. They didn't even bother to like replace the knob. They just got a wrench from the toolbox, and that's how he changes the channels.
Yeah. Sid's family home, one of the writers talks about how they imagine Sid's dad to be the sort of man who gets tricked into doing home improvement projects but never actually finishes any of them. So their house is in a constant state of like slight disrepair, explaining the backyard specifically. But I like to imagine that like most of Sid's house is broken in some extent, and that's partly because of his dad, who was like, I'll fix it, and then like straps a wrench onto it and calls it a day.
Well, it makes Sid seem much more tragic of a character too, because even though it doesn't show it explicitly, it feels like Sid's dad's kind of a drunkard and like kind of an absent father in his life, just sitting there in front of the TV.
It's also very much implied that like no one in the family's allowed in his father's man cave. There's not a lady's touch to be seen in the 5 seconds we see of this room. The dog won't even go in there. And
the dog gets called away.
The dog gets called away, but also, like, this dog is hesitant to go in there, despite it being desperate to chase this living toy. The thing it's wanted all of its life.
Yeah. But this is where we get the message from Star Command.
This is a fantastic commercial, because this is the sort of commercials I grew up on. Only difference is that you can clearly see the child's hand holding the toys, whereas when I grew up, the toy just sat there, and then they, like, green screened the action on it.
Yeah, it was fun. The point that they were trying to get with that is just how overbearing toy commercials were for the time, of, like, just all in your face of, like, here, buy toy now, have money toy.
Toy money, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is fantastic. I love it, because while the style of toy commercials has changed, there's now a lot more emphasis on having like a cute animated character and like, you know, more transitions. Like this style of commercial has changed. The idea behind the buy toy now has not changed.
No.
And so while this commercial is very dated, I think it still works, and it feels like a commercial a child made. Which, even though that's just the style those commercials were back then, like this wasn't intentional. This is just how they looked. However, it does work for Toy Story.
Yeah.
Because one of the fan theories is that all of this is just happening in the kids' minds or in the kids' world, so to say. And so, like, yeah, having this commercial look like this works really great. Looks fine. I'm happy with it.
No, and it's also our first Not Al's Toy Barn.
I hate Al Toy Barn, but we'll get to that later.
Yeah.
Different day.
But also, like, just this existential crisis has got to be horrible for Buzz. Because it's like, this is the point where he's realized, like, oh, wait, they were right. I am the idiot.
I love how they modeled the Made in Taiwan logo on him. And one of the writers was like, yeah, he just never even noticed it was there.
Yeah, just it's part of, hey, it was part of his spacesuit. His spacesuit was made in Taiwan.
Who wants to tell him that he has property of Disney on his butt? Because he does. They modeled it.
Yeah. I don't know. But I do like this little bit of, like, the last hope he has where he sees the strategically placed open window and a bird flying out of it.
Yeah, it's very picturesque. I do have questions on how that window is opened and closed, because it is on the second story.
It's a movie.
A long stick.
Don't question it. No, it is bad placement from a house design, but it is that one, like he does, in, like, not only is he mentally broken, he physically gets broken. I
do love, though, that for a hard plastic toy, it is fairly well established in this movie that you can exist just fine and there doesn't seem to be pain for toys. Necessarily, like, in the same way that, like, humans would assume. Yeah. So, like, when Buzz lays there with his arm spread next to him and just, like, kind of looks like he passes out, he's just pouting.
But Woody screams when he gets burned.
Yeah, but also the other toys don't seem to have any problem ripping their own limbs off and putting them back on.
True. Maybe it's all just something in their head.
It might be.
I think Woody's more worried that he's damaged goods now.
I would believe that very strongly, especially given the second movie.
True. But Buzz is rescued by the sister, and he gets drunk off of tea, which
is a delightful way that they managed to get Tom Hanks into the right frame of mind for the scene.
Yeah, and, like, also it adds a comedy that, again, the adults are gonna appreciate, but the kids won't understand.
Yes,
but it's also this little funny bit where Buzz is, in dealing with his existential crisis, is upset over things that didn't happen. Like, he's like, all the years of training. It's like,
there was no training.
You just realized none of this happened.
There was no training, Buzz.
Yeah. But now we cut back to Andy's house, and it's time to talk to the other toys, get their attention, which they're playing Shrimp Battleship.
Yeah, and I love that he's losing so badly. Like, the worst, this is almost a skill.
Yeah.
Instead of just playing Battleship, they're playing reverse Battleship.
It's so bad.
It's amazing.
Well, Mr. Potato Head's not exactly smart. He's a vegetable.
That's true.
Yeah. Which, also, I love Woody's, like, trying to, like, get their attention, and we do see a little bit of the toys have calmed down a little bit. Even though they don't like him, they do say, save it for the jury, so there's a toy court system.
Well, I mean, that does make a little bit of sense. I'm sure there's toy jury stuff out there.
Toy jail.
There's 100% toy jail, because the Lego people had toy jail. You could build, like, a jail and have, like, your villains break out of it. Yeah, Andy doesn't own one. That's why there's no, jurisdiction.
They'd find one.
They would make one.
Yeah.
They put him in that paper box labeled jail from the beginning.
Yeah. And I also like that this is the part where the only help is the only way that Woody knows he's going to get over there is he needs Buzz's help, and Buzz is absolutely broken.
Yes.
And the way, the absolute horror that has to be of when the arms are revealed of the toys are like,
so
oh
fun.
Shit, he's taken apart Buzz. He's become Sid, basically, to them.
Which I do love that, like, it is both just a bit of a funny comedy, because we know that, like, just an arm doesn't necessarily mean he's dead. But at the same time, I do love the idea that they have assumed that Woody has gone to the dark side and joined Sid in his malicious ways.
Well, and on top of that, because we do get a little bit of... We realize that Sid's toys aren't bad, because they do repair Buzz. But they also bring up that we thought you were cannibals. Like, it doesn't make sense.
No, they don't eat anything. This is just some very wild imagination happening.
Yeah.
Here.
No, it's a fun little bit to add that doesn't, like, when you start and think about it,
it doesn't do anything.
Same with the toy court system and the toy lynching.
I could believe the toy court and the toy lynching. The toy cannibalism would be a little harder just because they don't actually seem to eat.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't, but it is funny.
Yeah. Also, we were introduced to Sid getting some rockets, which if Sid's mailing and ordering, he's probably just taking money from his folks and they're not even paying attention.
100%.
Yeah, which
100%.
A little worrying, and I think is why Andy's family's leaving. I think Sid's a good chunk of that.
It very well could be. I also think that Sid is the sort of kid who got an allowance and also stole some money from his parents.
Oh, yeah. But we get a storm that delays launch day, which is a good stalling and pushes it back. They did such a good job of paying attention to like the timelines because they get to Sid's the day before the move day, and if they had been blown up that day, it wouldn't have led to the dynamic ending that we get.
Exactly.
Because back at Andy's, the move is tomorrow, and they're all sad. Which there are some things too. Mm-hmm. Rex is paired up with Mr. Potato Head, and they're like, well, why do I have to be you again? Which means
they've moved before. Exactly.
And also shows that they're much old. They're the older toys that have been around a bit.
That's true. Yeah, because some of these toys will have never moved before. Like, probably Bo Peep was bought for the baby. She's a girly toy.
Not according to Toy Story 4.
That's true. Not according to Toy Story 4, but also, like, the canon line of events by Toy Story 4 seems a little off. Not gonna lie.
Yeah. But it's also, again, another quick moment to show that Andy loves his toys and he's missing Woody and Buzz now.
This is true. And it also goes, like, an extra level to show that Andy is the sort of kid who all of his toys to him are, like, specific toys. It's not just, like, his favorite toy and that's, like, the one toy. Mm-hmm. He is very attached to all of his belongings.
Exactly. And something that Woody probably hasn't had to deal with.
Probably not.
Because Woody's probably been the number one since Andy was probably conscious. Or gained sentience.
Honestly, yeah. Especially for, like, an 80s kid, Woody is a pull string, he's a cowboy. Yeah, probably.
Yeah. But now it's back to Sid's where Woody really needs his help. I mean, they're not really comrades yet.
No.
But this is where Woody's good side is finally showing through, and that...
Because Woody is a good leader.
Yeah.
He just has been an ass to Buzz.
Because Buzz disrupted his flow, and...
They are both to blame, but boy, Woody didn't handle it well.
But now that Buzz knows, like, his goal, his purpose in life, that's the thing, is Buzz... He has that little brief moment where he doesn't know what his purpose is going to be.
True.
But now he's like, okay, I am a toy, I'm going to follow Woody's guidance because Woody's been doing this for long enough.
Very true.
And now their goals are aligned. Also, I don't know if you noticed this, the manual in the crate with Woody is an it's an improvised interrogation handbook.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
No, I did not notice that. I did, however, notice that all of the books in Andy's room seem to be references to the other Pixar shorts.
Yes, no, that's exactly what the books are. I had that written as a note and forgot to add it. But...
No, I was too busy looking at everything else. I missed the interrogation handbook. That is hilarious.
Yeah.
And 100% something that small Nicho would definitely have owned.
No, I had ghost manuals and stuff.
Of course you did.
Ghost hunting manuals, yeah.
Of course you did.
But it is now launch and moving day, which turns the misunderstood are now the help that they need and good for revenge, which good mission plan that he sets up. Which
I do like this. I think this is the level of interaction that I liked the most out of the toys, because this was a good use of the the blurring between logic that we will see throughout 2 and 3.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not counting 4 as much because there's some more wishy-washy in 4, but the amount of like, oh well, if you time it just right, it doesn't count if they see you. Because like some of these toys are cutting it close.
Well, no, these toys are breaking the rules specifically for Sid.
Yes, for Sid himself. For the sister, when they get like ringing the doorbell and stuff, they're just cutting it close. But she never technically sees anything move.
True. technically they haven't broken the toy rules.
For her, so...
Which, if someone does see the move, what does that mean? Is there like some toy god that's going to come and smite them, take their sentience away from them, and then the children's actually playing with the corpse of a toy?
Unclear, untested theories. We never know. No. This is one of the few things that is never answered in Toy Story.
But it is a good way to turn Sid's horror back on him.
Yes.
Because they're crawling out of the mud. The army men have like nails through their head and shit.
Yeah, like his own horror comes to bite him in the butt. Mm-hmm. But I also kind of like this because Sid is not really a recurring... Like, he's not a necessary recurring evil. He is just kind of the idea of a kind of bully-ish child. Mm-hmm. Who's only really bullying his toys, apparently. But, like, that's not the problem.
And his sister.
Yeah, I mean, to an extent. He could be kinder to his sister.
Yeah, we don't see anything outside of the home life for everyone.
That's true. So, the fact that, like, this is a really good way of, like, ending it with Sid, but also we don't know what happens with Sid. We don't really get a follow-through. Mm-hmm. Not anything conclusive. I know there's, like, fan theories that, like, there's an older Sid later on in different...
He's a garbage man.
Yeah. Cute. I love it. I'd like to think that's just a band tee. Not gonna lie.
No, it's 100% Sid.
Yeah. But, like, this is a great way of just cutting off, like, the end of the villain without necessarily, like, 100% ending a child.
No. And also with the technological issues with this scene, I think they did well because originally they wanted the toys to come out of the ground like zombies.
Yeah.
But it was too difficult for the time.
I also like that by doing it with this mud, it does, like, add to their story that they were trying to work in with Sid's dad being kind of a handyman who never finishes anything. Mm-hmm. So having this, like, trench in the backyard, the beaten up shed that's just kind of, like, partly fixed. All of that, I think, adds better to it than just, like, a dry, dusty yard.
No, exactly. And I do like Woody's like horror element of like turning his head around like The Exorcist.
I do too.
We don't like being hurt, Sid.
Yeah, it is all done. This is the most over the top, I think, for the movie, but it works because it's also just the one time.
Yeah. Well, and it's the time that they break the rules to scare the absolute shit out of Sid, who is scarred for life now.
100% that, or my personal favorite fan theory is that this started Sid away from just horror and into paranormal, and Sid starts collecting quote-unquote haunted dolls.
I'd buy
as an
that.
adult.
But it also is a scene to show that Woody is a natural leader.
Yes,
I
like it.
That he guides these toys.
Yes, I think so.
Toys he doesn't know 100%. He's met them like once and is like, oh, you guys aren't so bad. And he was
rude to them like the rest of the time.
Yeah. Also, it just makes me think of like the toys in the junkyard.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
A whole society of junkyard toys, like...
Probably, yeah.
Wasteland, Mad Max, Toy World.
I mean, yeah, probably.
Yeah.
The Grinch's house, really.
But now it's time to fully escape, but they're not fully safe. Scud's obviously there, chasing them.
Of course, because of course Scud is just kicked out the door when he bothers the sister.
Yeah. And also, like, them using the RV car, because they do finally catch up to the, boat, or up to the moving van, but Buzz falls behind under a car, and Woody using the RV to get out of the mess is part of what got him into it, because I forgot to mention he used the RV car to knock Buzz, or kind of knock Buzz out the window.
Yeah, and then he tattled on him. Yeah.
And also using another toy to basically commit toy murder, kind of.
I do like how he's so focused, he doesn't even bother to be like, I'm rescuing Buzz. He just kicks him off the bus.
Yeah, no, exactly. One thing I will say about the scene is there's other little details of, like, the virtual realtor's office, which cool design for that.
I like it.
There's a fortune teller and a food store in this town.
That's honestly realistic.
Yeah, but, like, Scud is... Eventually they do get Scud off of them. It causes a car accident. Scud's mixed up.
Scud's fine, though. They did spend more effort than they originally wanted to, proving that Scud is not, like, hurt in any way.
Well, and here's how much the other toys are such assholes, too.
It's specifically Potato Head leading the charge. Him and Ham leading the asshole charge.
Yeah. Well, they kick Woody off to his doom, but not only that, once they kick Woody off, RV's out there.
Yeah, they can't get him back because he's got the remote.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Even if they got him back, they wouldn't have the remote for Andy to play with him. He'd be essentially a dead toy.
Yeah, basically. And he'd be sent to the scrapyard.
Probably.
Yeah. But, I mean, in the end, they are all ready to help once they do look like, oh, wait, we fucked up. He's actually helping Buzz. But I do like this little buildup of like, oh, all hope's gone.
Yeah.
The RV's battery dies, which Woody kept telling them, remember to replace the toy's batteries.
Yeah.
It's a good nod to earlier.
It is.
But again, it's showing them working back together, and the only way they can get back is through joining forces.
Yep.
And using Buzz to light the firework that goes boom.
I also appreciate that they originally weren't going to have the, like, pretend lighting. They were going to just have the light go.
Mm-hmm.
And then one of the writers was like, hey, boy, we should just lean into this. And, like, one match, one rocket, one RC car, one real car drives by.
Yeah.
And they were so proud of that in the commentary.
Yeah. And
honestly, it is really good writing, because you honestly don't see the match being blown out, because this has been building up for so long.
Mm-hmm.
We spent so long ago when we were given the match. We've had to look at that stupid rocket this whole time. The battery clip was all the way at the beginning. So, we've had so much build up that, when the car drives by, you feel it in your gut. And
also just when they do take off and they throw RV into the moving van.
They miss.
And Buzz references it, or Buzz is like, or Woody's like, oh, you're flying, and Buzz references back to the beginning. No, it's falling with style.
Yes,
it's a nice nod.
It is a great nod. It is fantastically done.
Yeah, and they just magically appear or land in the box next to Andy, who never noticed them at the top of the box.
You know what? He's a kid. Don't worry about it.
Or his parents never saw them fall through the rearview window.
Again, don't worry about it.
But they're returned now, and we're on to the new house, a more modern house, because it looks like it's built in the country, and there's an attached garage.
Very fancy.
We're back to the very beginning of the movie with another holiday of potential toys.
Of course.
Back to spying, Bo Peep all over them. Then now Woody and Buzz are co-leading.
Yeah, and it seems to be working really well.
And both pillows are on the bed behind them.
Which is a very cute touch.
It is. And we get in, and as the movie ends, we get introduced to the new element, the puppy.
Which is terrifying. Good luck.
Yeah. No. Toy Story.
So cute.
And honestly, I remember how big this movie was, because there were so many toys at the time. There were video games.
There was, and there was a popular video game too.
Yeah. And they do mention that it happens in Toy Story 2 about them not being able to or anticipate the demand of the toys for this movie. Which
is a little funny, because they knew they were going to have to make toys. That was part of the original Disney, signing on. If you sign with Disney, you know you're making toys. Especially by this point in the Disney World life.
Well,
but I don't think they realized how much of an impact this was going to have, because there is an entire land in Disney World that is Toy Story themed.
Huh.
There is an entire roller coaster that is Slinky Dog themed, and it is very popular. It's not one of the top populars because it's a kiddie ride, but adults regularly stand in line for it.
That would make me sick.
It would 100% make you sick. It does go fast. It's not like a baby ride, but it is a good first big coaster.
Well, and I think part of that is that maybe they didn't anticipate it, because this movie was so experimental for its time, that there wasn't the anticipation for it to be the big cultural success that it really was.
I honestly think they thought that the CGI was going to be more of a hindrance than it actually ended up being. Because they saw the CGI, and I also think that while they were developing this, it was very clear that they knew what they thought they wanted in their head, and then they saw the limitations that the CGI brought. And so for them, I think it was very easy to see where this for them fell short in places.
Yeah.
Especially compared to the second one.
Oh yeah, especially since it's it's made way down the line.
Exactly.
But that's the thing that goes to show what Pixar was trying to do, is that they wanted to set the quality high for this first type of film.
Yes.
And on what they wanted you to do was focus on the story, so you forget about the bad parts of the CGI.
And honestly, it worked.
Yeah, and the only reason we notice it is because we watch it 2 or 3 times before we review it.
And I think for most people, and this is something that every couple of years, especially when Pixar does do something really out there. People
Mhm.
people tend to go back and redo, or if there's like some big wave that happens in Disney World where, like, example, there's a renovation in the Toy Story Land. People do go back and rewatch them. And people regularly, every couple years, the waves come through of like, wow, Toy Story is such a good movie, but I didn't realize that's what it looked like, because in my head I don't remember it being like that.
Well, and that's just because, like, they do set such a good quality for the story, but also it's how the voice acting was well done and fit what it needed to.
Yes.
It kind of makes me think a little bit of how, to be honest, American voice acting for anime is still pretty bad.
It is.
But also that debate that people bring up every now and then is King of the Hill better in English or Japanese?
No, and it's a good debate because, yeah, like, there are times where King of the Hill looks goofy. Like,
yeah, like we talked about in The Cat Returns, where Tim Curry realized he couldn't do the guttural Shogun style Cat King, and so he's like, so I'm going to take a different approach to it because I can't imitate the Japanese style.
Yes. And so and it is interesting to also see, like, especially when you first rewatch this movie, the CGI, especially when, like, Andy first gets shown, you're like, oh god, I forgot this is what Andy looked like.
Yeah.
But to be honest with you, it only takes about 30 minutes of the movie for you to be fully back adjusted to this old CGI. And part of that, I think, is because of the earnesty of the voice acting and the music really does help draw you in completely. And while, yes, the humans don't look great, you don't have to look at them very much.
No.
So it works out okay.
No, exactly. And I think that's exactly the point where they wanted to make a movie that made you feel for the characters. It's a character movie. And that's something important, especially with when you write a buddy comedy movie, is even though there are technically two main characters, one is more of the main character of the other. And even though Buzz's story is fun, Woody's story is 100% about becoming humble and learning to accept others, not only for who they are, but to be able to collaborate with them, which in turn makes him a better leader with Buzz as a side.
Oh, 100%. I also think part of the reason why this worked is because the writers were... There were so many writers that there was enough room to have these little details and this smart dialogue back and forth and this character growth that as a kid it is easy to enjoy, but also as an adult it is fun to go back and really think and deep dive into if you feel like you need to.
Yeah, and I mean, whether you love it or hate it, Toy Story did set that standard for the industry moving forward.
It really did. I mean, almost everything is CGI now. Yeah,
even in our special features, Hayao Miyazaki, he has like a small 2-line bit in the commentary stating that it even had an impact on how they were making movies.
Yeah.
And you can kind of see that in like the more recent Studio Ghibli films where they do go for a specific style, or like Monster House that we talked about years ago now.
Yeah.
Where they set a standard for the style where they wanted it to feel kind of in between stop motion and fully CGI.
Yes.
I mean, hell, this led the way to, while it's not a good movie, Final Fantasy The Spirit Within, where you can see like some of the effects are still good. The people are rough.
The people are always rough, though.
But so much of it's actually interesting to look at.
Yes, and on top of that, this movie was the first one that was feature-length, CGI, and also it was a bit of a gamble. They figured by going with Disney and having really big actors and really great music, they were hoping to at least break even. They did not break even. They made a lot of money.
And still make money.
They still make money on this movie. But because that precedent was set, that this busted so many waves, it was very easy for others in the industry to say, okay, I can consider CGI as a viable source, as opposed to like when we see people like James Cameron use it, who was using it to like really push the technology, which we do need. We need people like that to do that, but it's not necessarily leading the way for the next year or two. It's leading the way for 5 to 10 years in the future for the technology. Pixar pretty much set the standard, and like by the next year, people were like considering this as a viable way to make a movie.
Yeah, and also not only did it set a standard for the CGI, it set a story for Pixar itself. There's a line in Toy Story, The Art and Making of the Animated Film, that Lasseter says that 100% defines Pixar. It says, "To me, there's no object that can't become a personality."
And boy, if that doesn't describe Pixar to a freaking T. But in reality, though, that is kind of always been Pixar's point, is they have always been the ones who are looking for a slightly different story, honestly a more mature story to tell a children audience, and it works.
A Bug's Life is Seven Samurai, but with circus bugs.
That's true, and a delight. But yeah, like there's always something more that can be done that is not just a princess story. And don't get me wrong, there's always going to be a place for a classic fairy tale. But having these sorts of stories that can come alongside and be advertised in the same light, brought about in the same amount of passion, and given the same amount of merchandising, does really help. Even if you are not a fan of the big corporation, you can't deny the amount of impact this movie has had because it had the mouse behind it.
Well, and on top of that, just Pixar in general being very selective in what they're making.
Yes, it does make a difference.
Granted, I've seen a select number of their catalog, because as much
I
as
have seen a lot of their catalog.
Yeah.
Almost all of their catalog, minus a few of the brand new stuff. And to be honest, it is something where, yes, in these recent years, we have seen tides in what is a hit and what is a flop. But for the most part, it is easy to see that statement of whether or not something can be can be personalized and given a personality is something that is honestly a good storytelling backbone.
Yeah. And even though you bring up that they had the backing of Disney behind them, Pixar has set themselves so far out from Disney that me and my brother don't consider them even remotely tied to each other. Outside of like, what was it? Brave is actually there. It was a collab between them.
It's a collab, but it was mostly created by Pixar.
Yeah.
That happens regularly, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. But I do think it is something that more and more people, especially as Pixar has aged, because Pixar, for a children's production company, is newer to the game than a lot of other companies. Especially since we live in this mega corporation of really only having a handful to choose from. It is becoming more and more clear that Pixar can hold their own even without the mouse's help. Even though the mouse always has had his fingers in the process, people are clearly looking at it with the same eyes that they do like DreamWorks.
Yeah.
So I'm impressed, and I'm happy to see that, because it does mean that as time has gone on, they've had more and more freedom to create some a little bit more, honestly, risky projects. Some have been good, some have been a little bit of a flop.
The only one I know that's a flop is Good Dinosaur. And I haven't seen it. I finally saw Up for the first time like 2 weeks ago.
I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
Yes, Good Dinosaur was a flop, but it was a flop for a very specific set of circumstances.
Okay.
And part of that was just because of timing and marketing, and then also the lack of product to go with it.
Okay. So, Chris, at the end of it, on our good, bad, weird scale, what do you give Toy Story?
It is, of course, for me, just a good. It is a fantastic movie, and it is one that has held the test of time, despite the fact that the humans' faces are scary.
I cannot agree anymore. Even when I have like my little qualms with it, I still think they hit the mark with, even though they knew the CGI was even rough for the time.
Yeah, it was worth it.
They made it something more than just being an animated film.
100%.
And yeah, it still holds well, I think.
It does. It 100% does. Yeah.
So would you recommend this movie for someone who hasn't seen it before?
Yes. Oh my god. Go into it knowing that the CGI is old. It is the oldest, to be honest with you. However, it does not take long to adjust. It is still a fantastic movie. And if you have probably heard the music, watching it with the movie is even better.
Yeah. And they did a good job with turning the "You've Got a Friend in Me" to have multiple meanings throughout the movie.
Yes. And also, I would like to state on record that this is perhaps one of the only times that Tim Allen is a good actor in my eyes.
Because you don't have to look at him.
I don't have to look at him, but also he did really do a good job.
Yeah, I do also recommend this movie. It's something that I'm glad I returned to, because I honestly, before we decided to do this, I hadn't seen anything Pixar since I first watched Toy Story 3.
Understandable.
And that was like back in 2010, so it's been about 13 years since I had gone back to any of this.
Understandable. And yeah, this is the one that started it all, and honestly, I've always been interested to see where Pixar's going. They've always had my interest.
And I've got a little bit of a renewed interest, so...
There you go.
But now it is on to that time of the episode. Year 5 of the Good, the Bad, and the Weird podcast of the 3 Degrees of Takashi Miike.
Yes.
Again, I've already won, but out of posterity, we're still going to play it. And I'm quite proud of myself on this one.
Let's hear it.
I went with Eric Von Detten, who voices Sid.
Yeah. Yes, he does.
Who was in The Princess Diaries with Joel McCrea.
Yeah.
Who was in Thor with Tadanobu Asano.
Okay, there it is.
Who was in Ichi the Killer as Kakihara, directed by Mike.
Alrighty, we did it.
And the reason I'm proud of this is Kakihara is a sadist who tortures, disfigures, and kills people much like Sid does with toys.
Yeah, I cannot deny that you have succeeded, and arguably this is one of the cleanest succeeds.
Yes. Sadly, this does cut out Ichi the Killer from down the line, as well as Tadanobu Asano, but it does not cut out Thor because the last time it was Thor Dark World, which is technically a different movie.
It is, unfortunately, technically a different movie. Good point.
Yeah, so but... Anywho, this has been the Good, the Bad, and the Weird podcast.
Thanks for listening.
Peace, and welcome to 2024, I guess. Thank you for stopping by this here town of the good, the bad, and the weird. We appreciate your listenership, and if you want more of our takes in your life, feel free to check us out on social media at The Good, the Bad, and the Weird Podcast, or TGTBTW for short. As well, if we missed a fact, your favorite part of a movie, or just have a suggestion and want to reach out and say howdy, feel free to email us at tgtbtwpodcast@gmail.com. And feel free to join our Discord at The Good, the Bad, and the Weird Podcast, where we talk about movies, just share random banter here and there. And always, check out our podcasters, streamers, or any other content creator we shout out in our episodes. We really appreciate it. And as always, thank you for listening. Peace.